How you going? I'm Stu. It's been a fair time since I posted last, or since I made a video last on the restoration project that I'm doing for my Volkswagen Type 3 Notchback. So basically, just to give you a bit of a wrap up, if you haven't seen any other videos, then what I did is I purchased this little notchy. It's the long nose notchy, so 1970. A lot of you love the earlier ones. I'm a big fan of the long nose. That's why I wanted to buy one of these especially. I just love how the front comes out, little VW badge sticks out there. So pretty cool notchback Volkswagen Type 3. It's got a 1600 twin port in it. I haven't done anything with the motor. Apparently it's a really good motor. What I'm actually doing is I actually have to get it reasonably presentable to be able to take it through and get it registered in our state of South Australia here. They're not too strict, they're pretty good, especially with the older cars. But the front beam is about this far off the ground at the moment, about 40 mil. So what I'm actually having to do at the end of it is raise this whole car up back to standard ride height. Now, I have no idea actually what I really want to do with the car. Pretty grassroots looking. I don't want anything flash. So I'm not going to be painting it gloss black. I'm not going to be getting every single panel back to immaculate, because I am not a panel beater. I'm not a spray painter. I have shit equipment and I have no idea. So basically over the last few months, I've been teaching myself, or trying to, how to panel beat. I'm making all the mistakes, but what I'm actually doing is I'm getting better and better. And I've undergone some pretty big projects lately. I haven't been filming them, but actually it was me that was doing them. So one of them was this C-pillar. So I'll give you a look at what the C-pillar sort of used to look like. So as you can see here, massive amounts of rust. You know, it's as if this thing was bloody pulled out from underneath the ocean. So it was pretty bad, and it was also pretty bad on this side. There was also, previously, somebody had cut out a huge section here and was obviously going to replace it, but they never got round to it. So what I had to do is, you know, cut up all these. I made a whole heap of little sections, cut it out, and it's ended up, I'm really bloody happy with it. When I first started this project, I was using that MIG welder down there. So that MIG welder there, that's a gasless MIG, and you know, since then I ended up purchasing this gas MIG, and oh my god, what a difference having gas makes. So I went from having to spend hours and hours and hours just grinding because the welds on the other one were so shit, to now actually being able to do half decent welds, which I'm really stoked with. So there was a big patch that I've welded in just there, and there's also all of this along here which all got welded. So all I've done is basically welded it, put a little bit of filler on it, and then I had to leave, so I just coated it with some etch primer, and I'm just going to finish that off with a bit more filler or putty or bog, whatever you want to call it. Just make it really nice and smooth, and then that section will be done. Yeah, just it's all bare metal now. It's got a little bit of surface rust on it, but I'm not too worried about that. Just before I paint it, I'm going to cut this whole thing back again, and just get it back to really nice. Then I'll prime it, and then and she'll be ready to go. Interior wise, it's pretty good. The floors are really good. What I've done is I've rust converted all those floors, and they should hold up for another 10, 15, 20 years. Doesn't seem to have anything in the bottom of the pillars down here. No rust at all, so really stoked with that. Nothing even around the bottom of the battery there, so I'm not really too worried about the floor. What it did have was a fair bit of rust under this sill here. I had to cut out that whole section. It was wafer thin. So that's really the next project that I'm going to do. I'm pretty scared about it because there's going to be a lot of welding and my welding skills are very average, although the old trusty gas MIG should get me going. In the front of the car, again, it's a fat nose or a long nose, whatever you want to call it. It's got a really good fuel tank, which I've taken out. It did have some rust in this corner, which is pretty common for these things to have rust up there. We plated that in, repaired it. It's holding up really nicely. Over here, I've got all my panels. Now, they've all been taken back to bare metal. I've welded up all the holes for where the trim usually goes along there. It's had some previous repairs done in its life, and they haven't done a very good job there. So as my skills progress, I'll get better and better at fixing them. So that is the passenger side rear guard. Then you got the driver's side rear guard here, which is really good. There really is nothing to do on this besides paint it. I've already done the body deadening on the inside of these panels, so they're all done with some really thick body deadener. This is my front passenger side guard, and this is in really good nick as well. Nothing to do on this guard whatsoever. It's just been welded up, and I've smoothed all that out. Little tiny bit of filler just because it divoted in when you're welding up those spot welds. And this is the disaster panel. So this is my driver's side front panel, and I had a good crack at trying to fix this. I had a lot of rust up through here, and I did an absolute disaster of a fucking job here. Look at this. Absolute shocking effort at trying to plate that in. And just bear in mind, I was using a gasless MIG to try and, you know, do all this fine welding, and yeah, absolute disaster. So I put it out there that I needed a new front guard, and this dude contacted me and sold me a new front guard. So I'm stoked about that. I only got a little tiny dent in there, which I'm pretty good with the hammers, so I should be able to smash that out, no dramas at all. And then I'll take this back, weld up those trim holes, and get that done as well. I've got to start on the other side. So the other side as well has got an issue with this seal down the bottom here. Front door's pretty good. Yeah, really good condition front door. No dramas with this at all. You know, it had a few dents which I've managed to get out quite nicely. Now the electrical side of stuff, most of it's still in here. It's no issue for me. I love auto electrics, no dramas at all, so it shouldn't be a problem there. Roof lining, yeah, doesn't have one. So we're going to be basically doing that, and I've never done it before, so I'm going to see if I can, you know, embark in doing some trim. All the door trims are pretty decent. They're all black, and it's got no carpet either, so we'll figure out something. Well, it's starting to bucket down. South Australia, winter. It's about 10 degrees. Doesn't really get much colder than this in South Australia in the middle of winter. Absolutely freezing for us, but you know, it'll get to 47 degrees Celsius during the summer, so we take it as it comes over here. So a couple of months ago, what I did is I actually used rust converter. I've got this gear here, and I've got some other stuff as well, and what you do is you just basically paint it on or spray it on and then rub it in. And what it's actually done is it seems to have turned all of that bright orange rust that it was into something completely different. It's what it's supposed to do, I suppose. And as you can see, I've just put the wire brush on this, and a lot of work to do, heaps of work to do. So we've got hole here, then we come along, got more holes, got more holes coming up here, so I'm gonna have to build a new section in here. That's all weak. Then it's also started to rust out of here. So all of that, plus everything on the inside here, which is pretty brutal, will have to be sort of replace the best I can with my limited skills. So one thing I learned from all you guys and all your comments and all that type of stuff is make your sections before you cut the shit out, and that's helped so much. So what I'll do is I'll actually get my plates of steel and then try and bend them up as best I can to fit all of these sections, and then I'll cut it out and try and weld it in. To cut it out first and then try and make the sections, really hard. This, really easy. So this section here, this is like a double layer, so it's like quite thick. It's two pieces of metal joined together, welded, bonded, whatever. So it's really thick, and the same with here, and that all needs to be replaced. So what I'm doing is I'm using this old shitty panel that I totally screwed up, and I'm going to try and use this edge. So this edge here, you can't quite see it, but this is a double edge too. So I'm going to cut some of this out, and I'm going to try and actually use that double edge there along here, and then somehow along here. But it's going to be a mission, and along here. This edge over here, it's a double edge. It's still a double edge, just a little bit thinner, but still worked out well. So I'm going to try and do the same from this panel here. So I've cut this piece out of that other panel, and as you can see, that's a double edge all the way along there, and that's where I'm actually going to weld that in. So I'm going to panel beat it, get it to roughly the same shape, and then I'm going to try and weld that in to that whole section there. Or maybe I'll just probably make a section here, then across here, and then up to here, rather than trying to do another bend down here. And then what I'll do is I'll cut another little slit out here and just put a nice little plate in there too. Not 100% sure yet. It's a bit of trial and error, I suppose. But yeah, that's what you got. You got a big twin section there, twin metal, and that's come straight off the bottom of this panel here. So while I was cutting this, I had a bit of an epiphany. Obviously it's twin skin, as you can see. Now this section here, what I'm going to try and do is open that up a bit and weld it across the back and across the front here. So I'm going to separate this like that, separate it, and weld it all the way across there. It's got that seam all nice now. Now it's just a matter of getting it to fit in that spot. Obviously I'll rust convert this and use the wire wheel just to grind it up nicely. So this section here is going to be inside the car, and this section here I've just gone and had a look. I worked out that I'm just going to bend that over and try and make it work. So I'm going to use the edge of this to get a bit of a round bend. I don't know if you can see that. I think this is actually a panel beating table. I'm going to use the edge there and just hammer away at this until I can get it roughly the same shape. So now I've cut this section out, and I'm going to try and make exactly the same thing with that section that I've already cut out of the other panel, and then weld it in, which is the fun bit. Starting to get a bit of a curve on it there. So I got one a little bit rounder. Now I'll go and check that. So you can see, that's what I started with. And that's what I've started with. And that's what I've created. So now I'm just finishing off this side. It's got a pretty steep roll just here. Can't get that with the blue panel beating table. So I've just got an extension bar for a 3/4 inch socket set. And I'm just using that to try and get that curve a bit finer. So I don't know what to do, mate, so I'm just having a crack, you know, using whatever I can. So as you can see, we're pretty bloody close there. That should do the trick. Obviously I've got to nip a fair bit off that, but I'm actually going to weld the back on, shape this as best I can, and I'll actually cut that off after I've welded it onto the actual car. I just reckon that'll work better. Just maybe it won't, but it's what I reckon it will. So I finally got that section in there. I reckon I've done a pretty good job. Haven't finished grinding it down yet, but that's a very solid piece of steel, which is now part of that, and it's pretty good. Well, I don't know what you can see there in the camera, but you know, I'll shape that up a bit more. It's a little bit low there, but a bit of filler in there will be fine. Yeah, wasn't too hard at all. Time consuming. Got to, you know, take a lot of time to get all these folds right, but no, all in all, pretty happy. So this one here being a fair bit bigger and pretty much dead straight, I've cut that whole section out. I've just taken it over here and just about to cut out another section here. So I've marked it all up. Whether or not I you know, weld the whole thing in at once, probably not, because it'll warp and bend and do all that type of stuff. So I might cut it off here and do it in 2 sections. See how we go. So I just finished MIGging that section in. It's not that pretty, but I'm a shit welder, and I've got a 200-year-old MIG. Actually, it's yeah, see, 200. That means that's how old it is. 200. Yeah. So yeah, just finished doing that. I'm a shit welder, but I don't care. What I do know is that the metal is now joined together. That's my definition of welding. Metal joined together. So that's done, and that's going to be strong, super strong. So once that's ground back, that'll be absolutely beautiful. So I've actually been here for about 8 hours now. Stopped briefly to have some dinner, maybe about an hour. So yes, 7 hours of pretty much continuous work, and I've only managed to do those 2 tiny little sections because I'm not a panel beater.